Hello, and welcome to Which Butcherbird Is That? I'm Rob from the Birdwatching South-East Queensland Meetup Group. In this video, I will provide tips on how to identify the two most common species of butcherbird across Australia. Whether you're new to birdwatching or you're more advanced and would like to learn how to identify butcherbird calls by ear, then this is for you. Let's get started. The two most common butcherbirds in Australia are the pied butcherbird and the grey butcherbird. There are three other species of butcherbird within Australia, however, these are well outside southeast Queensland, so we won't be covering them today. First, we'll go over how to separate butcherbirds from other similar looking birds in the region. Next, we'll narrow this down further to the species level. We'll start with the easy adults, then move on to the trickier younger birds. Finally, we'll go over some tips on how to ID by call. First off, we need to be able to tell apart butcherbirds from other similar species in the region. Beginner birdwatchers often mistake similar species because they rely solely on colour. I do confess that up until early adulthood, I always thought that butcherbirds were the baby form of the Australian magpie, and I wasn't even aware that there were multiple species of butcherbird. To me, they were all the same. Anyway, so we don't want to rely just on colour. We can use other traits like size, shape, behaviour, and posture to enhance our visual ID skills. This diagram shows how the butcherbirds rate size-wise compared to the rest. I've thrown in a pigeon, house sparrow, and a can of Coke so you're better able to gauge the overall size. Starting from the right, we have the largest, the Australian magpie. Notice its upright posture and its pointed beak. Moving to the left, we have the pigeon, which we're not going to talk about. Next, we have the pied butcherbird, and then the grey butcherbird, that's slightly smaller. One key trait about the butcherbirds is they have the hooked bill, which they use to butcher their victims. Next, we have the magpie lark with its streamlined and slender appearance. And that's it. So now we're going to move on to how to tell the pied and the grey butcherbirds apart visually. On the left, we have the pied butcherbird, and on the right, we have the grey butcherbird. You might be thinking, what's so hard about telling these apart? The grey butcherbird is grey and the pied butcherbird is black and white. Well, that's true. It is pretty easy for adults, but things get a lot trickier when we move on to the younger birds. Here's a mix of immature pied and grey butcherbirds. It's definitely a lot harder than the adults. It's a wash of grey and brown. We'll find out next on how to tell them apart easily. Well, a bit easier. The two main rules to separate these species are pied butcherbirds have a dark bib and grey butcherbirds have light lores. The lores are the section between the eyes and the start of the beak. In the grey, these lores are lighter than the rest of the cap, but in the pied, they're the same colour as the cap. To help us retain these identification rules, we're going to use the mnemonic device of delicious pie. So next time you see a butcherbird, think the pied butcherbird loves pie, so it permanently wears a dark bib. If you cannot see the bib, then it's a grey butcherbird. For the lores, you can imagine that the pied butcherbird has gorged itself on pie so much that it's stained its entire face from the pie filling. By the way, this is just to aid memory. I don't know whether butcherbirds like pie. They probably do, but it's probably not a good idea to feed them pie anyway. Now let's visit the previous slide and see if we can ID those tricky ones with this new knowledge. Remember, look for the bib first. If it still isn't clear, then check the lores. Okay, round two. So we're going to start on the upper left and then continue around anti-clockwise. So this first one, we've got a pied butcherbird, so we can see the bib here. And then moving on to the middle, we can't see a bib and we can see a lighter lore here, so that one's a grey. And then moving to the upper right, The bib's a bit harder to see, but it's definitely there, and we can confirm that there's no lighter law here, so that one's a pied. And this one's a bit tricky, but we can see the lighter law here, so that one's a grey. And the middle one, I think this one's the trickiest because it's hard to see the chest, but we can see this light law here, so that one's a grey. And then this final one is another tricky one, but we can see the bib here a bit, and there's no lighter law, so this one's a pied. And now we're done for this section. Now we're going to learn the calls and the songs of the Butcherbirds. Don't worry if you don't get these straight away, it takes time and practice. To tell apart bird calls, it helps to learn the hook for each species. A hook is part of most songs, bird and human alike, which is often repeated to make it easy to identify. Most bird species also have more than one song and call, however, to make our lives easier, we're only going to learn the most common ones. First, I'm going to play the song of the Grey Butcherbird. Try not to get overwhelmed with other parts of the song, just listen for the hook. The hook for the grey is the hollowy, echoey, vowely, ooh-like sound. At this stage, we're only listening for individual sounds, not a melody. Okay, let's listen. Okay, how did you go? Did you hear that? Ooh, ooh. That particular pattern isn't always present, but the individual sounds and notes are. Don't worry if you didn't pick it up. I've included links to these calls in the credits section so you can replay them and listen to other calls as you need. Now on to the Pied Butcherbird. Some people say its song is likened to the opening bars of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Personally, I can't hear it, but if you can and it helps you remember, then use that. Notice how this song's more melodic and missing those hollow O-like sounds of the grey. The pied has a higher vocal range, but unless you're a trained musician, identifying song pitch in the field is very difficult. Fortunately, the Pied Butcherbird has a call that makes it easy to identify. If you've listened to ABC's Off Track, you might have heard this interpretation of the pied's call, "Missing you!" Have a listen for it. The grey doesn't make this call, so next time you hear "Missing you," you'll know straight away that it's a Pied Butcherbird. So wrapping back to the pie mnemonic we were adding to earlier, you can imagine the Pied Butcherbird is saying, "Missing you, we're gonna have pie together when we meet next time." And the grey's giving a ooh or ah of disappointment because the Pied Butcherbird always takes all the pie. That's it for calls and songs. Next time you're in the field, try to guess which Butcherbird's calling, then try spotting it. This will reinforce what you've learned, and then you'll be birding by ear in no time. Let's summarise what we've gone through. Is it a Butcherbird? Does it have a hooked bill? Hunched posture? To break down into species, we can't rely solely on colour. Does it have a bib? Then it's a pied. Does it have a light law? Then it's a grey. Auditory. Does it have those deep hollow ooh-like sounds? Then it's a grey. If it has "missing you," then it's a pied. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and please feel free to leave a comment whether this has worked for you or you have any different methods to ID Butcherbirds in the area. If you live in South-East Queensland, please feel welcome to join us for our monthly walks and find out more on Facebook and Meetup. Bye!